What's up, legends? All right, we're back for another episode of Dig the Data. So essentially, there's a lot to unpack at the moment around the current tariff situation, what's going on in that landscape, how Vietnam, China, Mexico and their critical supply chain is currently getting impacted, and then the 9th April tariff pause. I mean, we've we've been experiencing a rally out of the tariff pause 9 April, which subsequently started with a massive dump on the announcement of the tariffs on Trump coming into office. And now we're sitting in this very, very, very sort of tense space where we don't actually know what's going to come out of the court rulings. But what we're going to do in this episode is just dig into some of that data. So let's jump straight into it, and we'll go through a few articles that I've picked up here. I mean, just to get us started. So coming in tomorrow, today is the 3rd of June. We're coming into the 4th of June. Already, Trump has doubled the tariffs on steel and aluminium from 25% to 50%. Then we've got that is impacting a $31 billion industry. So it's not just also going to be on imported cars. It's affecting all of the components that are imported. So even if you're manufacturing a car locally in America, but you're importing a couple specialized parts, those parts are going to carry the tariff. So it's literally like across the board going to impact everybody. And a lot of this is going to have been affecting imports leading up to this point. So now you will have had like an increase, a massive increase in in demand, global demand by America, where they're trying to get as much stock into the country prior to these tariffs taking effect. You've also got the U.S. courts. So you've got the U.S. courts, the International Trade (CIT) came out with their ruling on the 28th of May around the need for the tariffs to be essentially nullified and put aside, and saying that they're all illegal. And now Trump has been managed to get an appeal through, but that only gives them 14 days. So what Trump thought he had is he thought he had all this time to negotiate deals with the countries, and now within 14 days, that entire plan could fall apart, which means that they could, what I would expect to see is now a massive escalation in the tariff relationship. And if we were to kind of just have a quick look at how the S&P 500 is looking here, you can see how we, and on the sort of the announcement of tariffs coming in, we had this sort of massive decline in the S&P, which is almost COVID levels, down 22%. And then on the 9th of April over here, that's where we had the tariff pause, and now we've rallied, right? Now there's a lot of uncertainty coming into place here around, is the court going to rule in Trump's favor? Is the court going to rule against him? And there's a big conversation around, if they rule against him, then they're going to significantly handicap the US, because the US then won't be able to implement tariffs against the countries that they've just done. And but those countries will still be able to implement whatever tariffs they want against the United States and be like, well, dude, yours is illegal, but that doesn't make mine illegal. So you can still pay us our tariffs, but you know, we just won't have to pay you yours anymore. And so he's really like been like screwing the pooch a little bit by putting himself between a rock and a hard place. So I want us to keep a couple close eyes. Here we go on your S&P. If we start losing 5.8, then we've got that. We're most likely going to come back for these gaps underneath, and you could see a massive decline again in the S&P, which is going to pull down the rest of the markets, right? So just to kind of jump back into this, now we've got this 14-day pause, and by the 9th of June, so coming towards the end of this week, where you're going to have the unemployment data coming out as well, coming out on Friday, right? So on the 8th of or 6th of June, there we go. Let's have a quick look here. So 6th of June, you've got your unemployment data, which is going to be used in the Fed decision. If that comes out as in unemployment has dropped, that could also be bearish for the S&P. And if Trump is expecting that he might lose this case, I would expect him to increase his efforts and bullying against these countries and to make sure that he can get some deals closed before the courts make their ruling for within the 14-day period. So there's a lot happening, a lot of unpack in the next couple of weeks, right? You've got the Canada, Mexico 25% tariffs. We've got the China tariffs. We've got the reciprocal tariffs, 10% against all countries. And you remember that list that Trump put out there. Then you've got, so he's given countries until 9 July. Originally, 9 July was to negotiate those trade deals, but that's a month from now. And actually, he might lose his negotiating power just over a week from now. So you can expect that this is going to be pushed forward quite substantially, right? Now you can see the White House pushing nations to submit their best trade offers by Wednesday as the deadline approaches, right? So we're already starting to see this. And what you could see from Trump come out in the next couple of days, and this is what is so scary, is that he might look to double up or double down on this tariff environment in order to get it to a point where it's kind of the point of no return. And that's where we would then see a massive decline in the markets. And we need to be prepared for that before we just go bid everything because it's all, like it's going to the moon, banana phase, woo. That's not happened just yet. And we need to bear in mind the risks on the table. So we've got our good old man over here, and he's going to be ready to jump in and throw some punches. And most likely, what you're going to end up with is a very news-orientated market environment for at least the next week or two. Very choppy, very difficult for leverage, and very, very pro whatever Trump is going to try and implement and make sure that he can force the judge's hands in that regard, right? So next up, we've got this exclusive US-made tough requests to Vietnam and trade talks, right? So now you've got, what's happening here? Now we've got the 47% tariff that's coming in on Vietnam. And a lot of this is actually coming out of the Apple relationship. So I just came back from Vietnam a few weeks back, and there's a massive amount of development taking place there from China, right? So China is building a lot of factories in Vietnam, and you're actually going to, and so for Vietnam to now get pressure from the States to stop exporting products that are basically China is sending products to Vietnam and Vietnam's labeling them made in Vietnam and sending them on to America. And in order to bypass some China tariffs dating back to the 2018 tariffs that got implemented by Trump. So there's a massive issue here because the US is putting now pressure on Vietnam, and Vietnam is between a rock and a hard place. Like you've got China investing all this money into their economy in order to be able to manufacture in Vietnam. You've got Apple increasing their investments in Vietnam. We spoke about that in the previous video. And now you're looking to, the US is again trying to put them between a rock and a hard place. So it's going to be a very, very difficult environment for them to get around. And in light of that, I would not expect to see a sort of decline in this environment until either the courts rule against the tariffs or they delay it. But this is not an easy situation to solve. Then you've got your exclusive, right? Another exclusive US pushes countries for best offers, right? So now I wish I could play this for you, but come and have a look at the Reuters website. You'll see it there. There's basically a summary. Trump administration wants countries to detail tariff rates, right? So if we do start to see some deals coming out this week, that's going to be good. But if I was a country and I know that there's a possibility that the courts are going to rule your tariffs illegal, then why would I make a deal? I'll wait to see what the courts say. Unless, of course, Trump comes out and says, look, I give you this deal today, but tomorrow it's not available anymore. You can wait for the courts, or what I can do is either you take it today or tomorrow I double the tariff and there's no more negotiating. So that's the kind of like art of the deal tactics that could be coming out here, in which case when the countries sort of delay on their deal making, similar to what happened with Apple delayed on their deal on their promises, then Trump came back and smacked that 25% on top of them. You're going to then see a similar thing where countries try and delay and wait for this court order to come through and wait for the courts to determine, hey, listen, dude, sorry, there's these tariffs are illegal, and then they can go back to keeping some of their tariffs and continuing to tariff America, but not getting anything reciprocal in return. Or you're going to end up with Trump doubling down on tariffs in this next 14 days, and that could be very, very bad for the markets. So keep an eye on all of that. Make sure that you guys don't get like too caught up. Don't try and be like too hyped up in the market and keeping 100% exposure right now. It's not the time. You need to be balanced and make sure that you've got a good sort of equilibrium in line with Benjamin Graham's principles from Intelligent Investor. You need to make sure that you're always weighted into the markets when the markets are fearful and weighted out of the markets when the markets are greedy. And if you look at the markets right now, we're in a state of high intense greed, but actually on the geopolitical environment, you can see that the market is very, very, very unstable right now. And a lot can happen in the next week or two where you could then subsequently see a similar decline to what we had in January. So just be careful out there, guys. Popping questions in the chat. I'm building out this channel to cover all geopolitical and market orientated, macro market orientated topics. And we're going to discuss a lot and dig into data around different countries. I want to speed. In the next video, we're going to be looking at the BOJ meeting coming up on the 16th of June. Right? Are they going to be increasing their interest rates or not? Let's look at the data. Let's look at what's coming out of Japan so that we can then determine what the risks are. And also at the same time, look at what are the expectations in the market? Because if the market is not expecting that increase and it then comes into effect, you could see a similar sell-off to the cash and carry trade unwind that happened in August last year. So hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next one, and we can dig into that. Ciao for now.